Hello and welcome to VetPhysioLife episode 10. I'm Shane Najasani and I'm joined as always by Kim Sheeder. Hi Kim.
Hello.
How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Still a bit croaky, but I'm feeling much better.
Well, we were having a bit of a chat before we started recording and I don't think you coughed more than once maybe, which is definite progress.
Yeah, definitely. See how the rest of the thing goes.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So it's Tuesday late afternoon. So how about we start with just finding out what you've been up to for the last couple of days?
Yesterday I caught up with some of my regulars, and who did I see? I saw my lovely Coton de Toulier, who is doing well still. Saw a Clumber Spaniel that I see on a 3 weekly basis, who's got some elbow dysplasia and some arthritis because of elbow dysplasia. So she's doing all right. She definitely is very affected by the damp weather. She's one of the ones that definitely gets affected by cold and damp. So we did some laser with her and lots of trigger pointing. She gets lots of knots in her triceps. So did a lot of stuff with her. She's always very grateful at the end of it. And did some neuro rehab on my pug, who's got had a slip disc surgery, hemilaminectomy, and has also got syndromyelin as a secondary, not as a secondary, but as another problem that's also neurological. But yeah, I was doing some stuff on a wobble board with her yesterday, which she wasn't keen on, but I was thoroughly enjoying because it was actually making her use her back end. So yeah.
Is a wobble board and a wobble cushion the same thing?
They're slightly different, but similar. So a wobble board is usually a solid surface, like a piece of wood, which is on an unstable surface, so like a half a sphere, so it or on rockers, so it doesn't stand still, but the actual surface you're standing on is firm.
Okay.
Whereas a wobble cushion is a rubber thing that's filled with air, so the whole surface is unstable. Okay. So they're used for the same. Sometimes it's just purely preference, sometimes it's what's available, sometimes you would use them for slightly different things, but yeah, they're very similar anyway.
Cool. So I was going to ask you that it's not really one's better than the other, it's just kind of different.
No, I don't think one is. It kind of depends. If you've got a wobble board that's only on a rocker, so it's unidirectional, so it will only tip in one plane, so either backwards and forwards or side to side, then that's actually easier because there's more stability there relative. Whereas if you've got a wobble board that's got what looks like sort of half a football on the bottom of it, so it can rock in any direction, then that's not dissimilar really to a wobble cushion. The only thing you could say with a wobble cushion is that because the whole surface is unstable, it's a little bit more one leg is independent from the other, is the best way I can describe it. Yeah. Whereas obviously you're on a stable surface on a wobble board, so you have to work more in conjunction with each limb to balance, if that makes sense. It does in my head, but I'm not sure if I'm describing it very well.
No, I get it, because you can, just by visualising it, you can see how with a cushion they would sort of be non-related in essence.
Yeah,
each other, yeah. No, cool. All right, who did you see after Little Pug?
So the only other one I saw yesterday was my FCE patient, who's actually doing really well at the moment, so I'm really pleased with him. So we did a bit more proprioception, went back over his practice a bit more on a wobble cushion with him. I get him doing all sorts of fun things. He can do sit to stands and 3-leg stands and sit to lies and all sorts of things on his wobble cushion now. He likes to show off. He's a great one. And then today I discharged the patient today, which was nice.
Very cool.
So this was a lovely little dog who I've been seeing for, I'm not sure, probably roughly about 6 months. Might be a little bit longer, might be a little bit less, I can't quite remember. Who had a cruciate, well, a suspected partial tear of the cruciate ligament. Hasn't had any formal imaging or arthroscopy or anything like that. And the owners were, and the vet, in fairness, were reluctant to operate because she wasn't that lame and wasn't that functionally compromised. So they decided to try physio first. And I'm very pleased to say it's worked an absolute treat with her. And she is absolutely fantastic. She's back to chasing after balls, although on the proviso that she's not allowed to jump up for them anymore. But that's something I'd get every owner in the world to stop doing for their dog, is don't let your dog jump up for a ball. Throw it long and low, not up and high. So, yep, she's back to running around like a lunatic. There's no lameness, and she's absolutely great, and her owners have been so dedicated in doing her exercises. And that's why she's so much better. So yeah, she's doing great.
So, what breed is she?
She is a Cockapoo, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, and I can't remember her exact age. She's 3 or 4, something like that. She's not very old. But yeah, it was, when I first started seeing her, she was going on walks, but if she ran, she was coming up lame. And when I first saw her, she had one very skinny back leg compared to the other. She'd lost a lot of muscle from just favouring that side, basically. And she was also starting to, she was very straight hocked, so her ankle joint at the back was very straight, and didn't have the heel protruding out as it should do. And as she was walking on that side, it was tending to flick over into extension, so just flicking in the wrong direction. And that was all part and parcel of her muscle weakness. So as well as strengthening the muscles around her thigh, which will help her stifle her knee joint and her cruciate ligament, we also did a lot to strengthen her gastroc, which is her calf muscle, one of her calf muscles. And that helps support the hop joint, the ankle joint, and she's not flicking over into hyperextension anymore. So I'm very pleased. She now walks normally.
Cool. And
yeah.
Will her carers have to do anything going forward with her, or just back to normal?
Well, kind of up to them. My recommendation is always that they keep up doing a little bit of the exercises. So I usually, as I was saying to them today, in an ideal world, I'll tell you to continue doing the exercises once a day, if possible, but say 2 or 3 times a day. 2 or 3 times a week. Apologies. Minimum, just because the cruciate ligament has still, is as far as we know, is still compromised. So we need to make sure that she doesn't stop using that leg again. Now, the chances are at this moment in time, and probably for the next fair few years, while she's still young and fit, she's not going to stop using it again, unless she does further damage to the joint, to the ligament. But as she gets older, she's almost certainly, that will be the leg that she ends up favouring and ends up having problems with. And there's a small chance that she's more likely to end up with arthritis in that stifle and that leg than she is in the other one, because there's more instability inherent in it, because she's got the lax ligament. And my feeling and my sort of personal experience has been that if you continue to do the exercises, A, it makes sure that they're obviously still specifically working those muscles, and B, I think they're more sensitive in seeing when there might be a problem starting again in later life. So you're more likely to see a difference or she'll start struggling with doing the exercises before you'll probably notice her going lame, just because they're very clever at disguising their lameness and their weaknesses, or not disguising their lamenesses, disguising their weaknesses until they can't anymore, and that's when you notice lameness.
Right, which you're saying is easier to notice if you're doing the exercises regularly rather than just taking them for a walk.
Yeah, because if you're taking them for a walk, they've got only one leg wrong, then they've got 3 other legs to disguise the problem with. Whereas if you're targeting their back legs with exercises that are strengthening exercises, then at best they've only got one other back leg to disguise a problem with. And if you're targeting the exercises to specifically a bad side, then they've got no legs to disguise it with. So you're going to be able to see them start to struggle with an exercise that they've previously been doing with no problems quicker than you'll see them having problems walking.
Yeah, fair enough. And also, I think, must admit, identifying subtle lamenesses is not something I'm particularly good at. So
it's not something that a lot of professionals are really good at, let alone carers. So, yeah, absolutely. Whereas as a carer, if you're doing those same exercises on a daily basis or on a twice weekly basis, you are going to notice when they can only do 4 of them rather than 10 of them like they normally do, and that's something like that. So yeah, it's something a little bit more objective for them to sort of focus on. Yeah,
very cool. And you said a little bit a while ago that you tend to recommend to people to not throw balls up and high, but rather throw them long and low.
Yeah.
It's something I've heard you say before as well, but would you mind just explaining kind of your reasoning for that?
No, not at all. Basically, the biggest shear force through the stifle joint, and if you're going to get, if you're going to rupture a cruciate ligament acutely, it's going to be with too large a force going through the stifle, the knee joint, and probably the biggest shear force you can get is a dog leaping from the ground with its back legs up into the air to catch a ball and then land again on its back legs. So, whereas with agility and other things, you end up with maybe the dog that, they will be doing jumps, but they'll be taking off with the front end and taking off with the back end and landing with the front end. You don't get that usually when a dog is leaping for a ball. It goes up in the air on its back end, very vertical, and comes back down again quite vertical and lands on its back legs. Both that takeoff and that landing are big forces going through the stifle. And it's a big cause of, or thought to be a big cause of cruciate ligament rupture. So that's why I don't like it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. It's one of those things that when someone points it out to you, you go, yeah, of course. But you maybe don't think about it the rest of the time. So.
Yes.
Very cool. Excellent. I wanted to just, change tack a little bit, because at the moment you're running this kind of mobile physiotherapy service. And I guess it would be kind of interesting to just know how you're finding the lifestyle to some degree. It's obviously a lot of driving and visiting people's houses. And is it fun? Do you enjoy it? Or?
Yeah, I do enjoy it actually. It gives a nice variety to my week, and it, from a purely practical point of view, allows me to arrange my diary. So if I do need to do something, annoying, like go to the doctor because I've got a cough, or, things like that, I can do. I can, fix my diary accordingly. I also enjoy, from a purely physio point of view, I do quite like seeing the animals in their natural environment. I think it's very, very useful. So for a couple of reasons. First of all, they're almost always more relaxed in their own environment. There are a couple of dogs that, there are a few dogs that couldn't care less, which is great because that means they'll be fine. They're the ones that the carers usually say, oh, they love going to the vet, it's absolutely fine. In which case it doesn't really make a lot of difference from the dog's psychological point of view. There are a few, and I haven't had many of these, I have to say, but there have definitely been a couple of dogs that I've come across that it's actually potentially a hindrance because it's a bit of a case of this is my territory and you're a complete stranger and what are you doing to me on my territory? Please go away.
Yeah.
But that doesn't normally happen, I have to say. I think that's sort of an exception usually rather than anything else. For the most part, it's usually they're a lot more chilled out. You get to see them moving around. You get to see them, how they live, you know, what their bed is like, what their flooring is like, is there any way that any of this stuff, any of their environment could be modified to help them be more comfortable, be more safe. And also from a home exercise point of view, this is the home. This is going to be where they're doing their exercises. So it can be incredibly useful from me as a physio to go, that step there or that little stool, let's use that and then let's do this exercise with that. Because you don't have all the equipment when you're at home and you've got a dog. I'm not expecting anyone to. And if I don't have to get the carer to fork out yet more money for not just me, but for potential physio equipment to do exercises with, then I'm going to try not to, because I don't want them to have to be spending more money than they need to. So, and also the familiarity. So a lot of dogs, if they've got something like, say the dog with the cruciate ligament, she didn't want to put any weight on her back leg. But she was perfectly happy to step up and into her dog bed, which was raised about 6 inches off the ground. So what the owners could do is just stop her when she'd got her front legs on the bed and her back legs still on the floor. Yeah. That way you then end up with her her altering her weight so she's putting more weight on the back end without her realising she's actually doing an exercise that's beneficial. And that can be the thing that sometimes can get a dog from not being compliant with exercises with their carer and being 100% compliant and not even realising they've got a problem and they're doing exercises. So yeah.
That's there's a lot of really good points there. I was starting to think when I was listening to you that it almost sounds like where possible at a certain point in a patient's treatment, we would rather the treatment was delivered at home rather than in a vet practice.
It's certainly, you could argue that quite easily. Certainly probably it's that initial point between discharge, it's that discharge home. You could almost do with, from a physio point of view, you could almost do with like a home visit at that point in time, which is something that we as physios do in the human world with elderly patients. It's not something that's regularly done, to my knowledge, within the veterinary world, but it is something to think about, because potentially that having a discharge home team, so you can not only, and that, again, that would fit in with what we were saying in the last episode about the problems with cage rest and things like this. If you do that visit home and you see how they're going on, then you can give tips and tricks and hints and go, well, let's put the cage there so they're in the room with you, or let's, whatever. So potentially it might be something to think about to improve that general care of that dog and that patient experience.
Well, I think that sounds like a great idea, and it's something for you and I to make a note of to discuss for the future. Fantastic. All right, cool. I'll let you go, Kim. Thanks as always for your time,
no problem.
And we'll speak. I think it'll be sort of towards the end of the week this week, yeah?
Yeah, that sounds good to me, yeah.
Excellent. Have a good evening, yeah?
Yeah, and you, thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.